Okay, space geeks and Mars freaks, today I've got something cool to show you. I've got this Gigapan for you to check out, so follow the links below, as usual in the description. Links to all these images and stuff right there, near the top. This is Perseverance Sol 1184, right? Now this is a really recent set of images that I put together. And as soon as I started looking in this, what is a riverbed here, there's some really weird stuff going on here, right? And I spotted this thing. Now, I spotted this a few days ago and put it up on my Mars magazine on Facebook. Come and check out Mars magazine if you're not joined already. It's free. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, I know a lot of you aren't. It's free to subscribe. It won't cost you anything. So that will really help me out if you do that. And here it is. We have here what looks like a primate skull, or similar type of creature. When I say primate, I mean ape, okay? A primary ape, as in something sort of not quite a gorilla, maybe not a chimpanzee, but something of that kind of size and possibly of that sort of intelligence. I don't know. It's impossible to say how intelligent some of these things were just by looking at the skull. But I'll quickly show you that, and I'll show you the enhancements, and I'll show you it full screen as well. We've got here some incisors. There's the mouth there. This is the jaw. Incisors. Eye socket here. You've got a shriveled eyelid there. Just about make it out. Now this is brighter and more contrast added, right? There it is. There's the raw image there, right, on the left. And here it is. Very strange. It's got this very large forehead, an eye socket here. You can see the teeth better. Now, once you add the contrast, these things come out and you can see more depth of detail. Right here, look at these teeth. We've got a row of incisors there at the front. It's always a giveaway, just here. See that? Quite small teeth. Unlike some of the other apes I've shown, and I will show you some more in a minute, I'll put some clips of other ones I've shown. Some of them have got huge teeth. Now, on Earth, most apes that we see on Earth have got quite large canine teeth. This one doesn't seem to have that, right? So, I mean, this is Mars, obviously, so they wouldn't necessarily be the same, but a lot of the species I've shown before, and I have shown many, do have very similar features to creatures on Earth and have similar teeth and similar eye socket shapes. They have similar skull shapes. They have similar morphology, basically. If you look here on the left, there's a circular object right here. Is that part of the ear, or is it actually a bit of jewelry that's fossilized in with this skull? Who knows? But it looks artificial. Could that be a natural part of the ear? This ear here? Maybe. I don't know. Now, just in case you think this isn't real and you're new to this channel and you think I'm just making this up, here's the actual page from NASA. Mars Perseverance Sol 1184 right mass cam Z camera, okay? And you can download this quite easily. And I'll just show you with the magnifier. There it is. It's pretty obvious even in the raw image here, which is very pale with almost no shadow in it. Okay. So with these, you have to color correct them, add some blues in there and a whole bunch of contrast and darken them quite a lot, about 40%. Right. And then you'll get something like this here. But it really depends on what software you use. You need to play around with it a bit until you get it right. But it's not that hard to do. You don't have to be an artistic genius to actually do this stuff. The images aren't too bad quality, and if you're careful with them, you can get some quite good results. There it is. Now, I'm just going to show you full screen. Now, here's the smaller clip I took. This is a bit darker. And you can see those details there. You can see that row of teeth. You can see the eye socket here. You can see that ear. There's a big ear there with that round thing just there. But I've got another one here, another clip here, which is bigger and a bit brighter. And if you look really carefully, you can see the eye just there, where my pointer is. There's the big ear with that round thing there. There's nasal cavities here, one there and one there. We have a mouth, we have a lower jaw. The maxilla area seems to be quite badly damaged here, just above this row of teeth, but it's not that bad. I've seen a lot worse. I would imagine there would have been more nose detail here at one point, but the bones generally on most creatures, the nasal bones are usually quite fine and they tend to break away and fall off early on, generally, at least on Earth anyway. And many of the skulls that I've shown on Mars are similar. They have lots of damage in this area of the skull. Okay, that's normal. It's the same on Earth. But look at the forehead on this. Now I have shown other similar things with these large kind of like armoured foreheads. Now on Earth, primates, assuming this is a primate, it may not be, but it may be something very similar. A lot of the primates on Earth, like gorillas and other types of large apes, have crest bones on top of their cranium up here. And it looks a bit like a Mohican. If you look at the skull of, say, a gorilla, they've got quite a small skull when compared to their actual body size. But they've got this huge crest, which acts like an armoured bone protecting the skull, okay? And that's not unusual on Earth. And some of the species I've shown on Mars look like they have very similar details on, okay? With crests and armoured skull bones, okay? So there we have it. I'm going to zoom right in and show you the teeth here. There's the teeth. Of course, what I'll do, actually, whilst I'm here, I'm going to add some more contrast to this for you. Look at those teeth now. Look at the details now. So adding darkness or contrast to an image really makes a difference to the actual detail. You can see here, this large forehead is quite flat on the front. It's very strange. Very strange indeed. We've got these like slightly hollow parts either side. What would that be used for? Headbutting? Probably. And now you can see that circular thing on the ear just here. It's almost like a perfect circle there. This was also spotted in Jezero crater and it isn't very clear, but you can see that this is an ape and has a similar large forehead just here. If you look carefully, you can see a nose here, you can see an eye there, and you can see a mouth with lips and a chin here with a row of teeth, but it's not very clear, okay? And when you zoom in, it doesn't really get any sharper. In fact, it looks better when you go back a bit like this. Because some of these things are quite small and they're a long way off. Now, the one I found today, the new one, is probably the same species as this. But this one is more mummified and still has what seems to be fur or hair on it. Right? Which is crazy. Crazy stuff. And we have those similar details. We have this large kind of forehead. Now, is it the same species? Possibly. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Now, this is also Jezero crater. And this is another fossilized skull, but I'm not sure this is the same species, but it's not far. This is Sol 1068, so you're going back about 100 days before. And it's probably about a mile away, or about maybe just half a mile away from where we are today. And on the slope, not only do we have this weird thing here with these gouged out kind of what look a bit like skull details on it, but this one, we've got quite clear eye, nose and teeth detail here. You've got a nice row of teeth there. Much longer incisors on this one. A more clearness on the nose and even eye, preserved eye detail just here. Crazy, right? So that's not far from where we are today with the new one. And then we have crazy stuff like this. Now, this one I called the hell ape, right? This was found in 2021 in Jezero crater, not very far. This is Sol 63, so this is only 63 days after the 2020 rover actually landed, and this isn't very far from the LZ, the landing zone, okay? And this is very large, way bigger than the one we're looking at today, and isn't related. It's just an example of how extreme looking some of the specimens are on Mars, with a massive, huge skull and a very, very long, pronounced maxilla here with large teeth at the front. The jaw, the lower mandible is missing here. It would be there, but it's not there. That's fairly common with skulls on Earth. When you see skulls in the desert or in wherever on Earth, you usually find them without the jaw or the lower mandible, right? That usually falls off or breaks, and it's usually found nearby on the ground. But this is extremely weird, and this is really large. This is about 2 feet in length, which is why I called it the headache, because not only is it very large, but it's quite scary looking. And maybe a type of baboon, maybe some other type of creature, I don't know. It may not even be an ape of any sort. And like that other one I showed you a minute ago, it doesn't have bit large, pronounced canines either. Right? Doesn't have them. Interesting, right? Interesting comparison there. And I mean, I've got a whole bunch of them here. I mean, this is one of my favourites. This is more like a baboon. And this is one I found in 2017, years and years ago. Okay? And there is actually some new clips of this that I did recently. And this is really small. This is probably only about 5 inches in size. So this is like a small little thing. Totally different to what we're looking at today. But look at these eyes. Preserved eyes and lip detail, right? So some of these are really small. Some of them are tiny. And like this one here, this is really unclear as well. But this is Curiosity rover, Sol 519. This is tiny. This is about 3 inches. So there are lots of small little species. Some of them may be young, very young ones. But I mean, the number of species I've found so far is quite insane. And there are large sort of baboon types. There are sort of gorilla types. There were sort of chimpanzee types. There were orangutan types. There were what looked like lemurs or similar types to some of the things we have on Earth. But they weren't the same. They're just similar in morphology, skull morphology. Like this one here. I mean, it may not be that species or a macaque or a baboon, but it's similar morphology we're looking at, with brow ridges here sticking out quite pronounced, and the snout here, right? Not the same, but similar to some of the things we have on Earth. And I mean, some of these are tiny, but some of them are quite large, like this one. This is sort of almost like a gorilla type proto-human. Who knows? Sol 571 Curiosity rover. This is quite large. This is about double the size of a human skull. Okay, so it's quite large. But is it an ape or is it a proto-human? This has sort of more proto-human-like nose features here. Okay, so I mean, you can draw lots of conclusions from these things just by comparing the different ones that have been found. And some of them seem to be sort of mummified or possibly carved, like this one. I mean, is it an orangutan? There's an orangutan. It's not the same, but it's got similar shape to it. Okay, I mean, some of these things are just super weird, and they're sort of fossilized into the lake bed shoreline. A lot of these things, where the clays would have mummified or at least fossilized them. I mean, if you want to find fossils, the edges of lake beds and rivers are where you're going to find them, right? Because that's where all the sedimentary clays are, which then harden over these things, and then they fill in and turn into fossils. Okay. And as I've said before, I think this process on Mars may have happened much more quickly in some cases because of the very high bicarb elements in the regolith or in the earth that's here. a large amount of salt, a large amount of sulfur, and a large amount of bicarbonate minerals, right? These things would then mineralize, crystallize relatively quickly over a few days initially. And obviously they would also freeze and then fossilize. Okay, so the initial preservation would have taken place almost instantaneously because it gets very, very cold at night on Mars. Even when Mars was more habitable, I expect that it was still much colder at night than it ever gets here. Okay. Interestingly, with this one, the top part of the head has been removed, and you can see into it, just there. So it's been sculpted. Insane, right? But not very clear. Some of these things look better if you go back a bit like this, because they're so small. When you zoom into things that are really small, they just pixelate. You've got to get the distance right, the viewing distance. This thing is literally about 1.5 inches size, maybe 2. I've got archives going back many years and are full of these things. And some of them were massive. This is what looks more like a gorilla. This is a side view. This is the eyebrows here, brow ridge there, nasal cavity there. There's the eye just there. There's the teeth. But this is like 1/4 mile away from the rover and is huge. It's just about 3 feet long. So some of these things were giant. Really, really large, okay? And some of them were tiny. So we have tiny little monkeys. We have baboon-like apes. We have, like the new one, weird apes with the huge foreheads. And then we have some like this, which look like they're carved as well. Some of them look carved. Or is it? And this has got more of a pig-like, almost a pig-like nose. We've got a small ear just here. We've got 2 eyes here. This kind of looks mummified to me because we've got shriveled eye detail. Now, you wouldn't necessarily get that in a carved statue. You wouldn't get that sort of shriveled look to it there. Okay, this is Gale Crater again by the Curiosity rover. Found years ago. Okay, so it's not a chimp like this. This is actually from the film Planet of the Apes, actually, this one here, this comparative image. And it's not the same, but I just put it there as an example to compare to, right? So some weird stuff going on here. And some of them kind of have a sort of piggish appearance. Some of them have a very puggish appearance, like this one. Crazy, right? And this is only a few inches in size as well. And many of these are small. Apes seem to have been pretty common in both these craters, both Jezero and Gale Crater, for some reason. And I've even found what look like carvings of apes as well. So they may have actually been venerated by the people there. And they may have had temples dedicated to some kind of monkey god like Hanuman, who I've also shown before. Now this is next to a ruined structure in Gale Crater and resembles very closely the god Hanuman here on the left. And also resembles very closely this huge face that was found in Antarctica a few years back, which I showed on my channel. So this is Mars in the middle, a Hanuman carving, the monkey god, right? This is a figurine of Hanuman, the demigod or god Hanuman. And this is Antarctica, a giant face that resembles Hanuman. At least partly, I would say. All right, and this is massive, this thing. It's like about 0.5 kilometre wide or something, and about 1 kilometre from there. This is absolutely huge. Unbelievable. Look at this. If I zoom in, it's got really good detail as well. Look at this here. This eyebrow. There's the nose, there's even a nasal cavity there. And the mouth. Look at the mouth. It's all covered in snow and frozen. So what's going on here? Were some of the ancient gods worshipped on Earth actually from Mars? And did they come to Earth and colonize Antarctica when large parts of it were unfrozen, say 500,000 years ago or millions of years ago? Antarctica hasn't, not all of Antarctica has always been frozen. Some of it probably has always, but large parts of it were unfrozen because we have ancient maps of it going back, like the Piri Reis map, showing large parts of Antarctica unfrozen. And there are many maps from that period showing Antarctica as an unfrozen continent in high detail. So there is something going on there that we're not being told about, right? Is there a connection between Antarctica, Mars, and Earth? I think there probably is. And I've shown many examples of things on Mars which look very similar to things that we have here. Not just the animals and creatures, but also the structures and some of the technology, I think, was similar to what we have now. But most of the things we find is ancient remains, because a lot of the new stuff may have been made of different materials, whereas the old stonework and stone carvings survive like they do on Earth with the great pyramids and the great Sphinx in Egypt. These things tend to survive, even cataclysms and nuclear wars, because they're made of solid stone material and have a low centre of gravity, and often they're quite close to the ground and can survive blasts, okay? Whereas all the taller buildings, most of them have been destroyed. A lot of these things on the ground are protected because they're usually by the remains of a building that's protected them from the erosion, but also from the initial blast that destroyed many of these things on Mars. And like I said, all you have to do with these things is play with the brightness, and these things start to stand out. And you can even see eye detail, inner eye detail there. And the teeth here, right? So thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please share it on social media if you possibly can. Check me out on Rumble, ArtAlienTV 6 on Rumble. Check me out on Twitter, at ArtAlienTV. And check out my group, Mars Magazine, on Facebook, ArtAlienTV Mars Magazine. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.